The IZ Quick Add module allows for the reporting of mass doses administered. It may be helpful to providers holding large flu clinics or mass immunization events in response to a certain disease outbreak. It is designed to make data entry for mass events quick and easy. This module is permissions-based. Therefore, you will need to contact the CIIS Help Desk in order to gain access to the IZ Quick Add module. Please note, all clinics that add their immunization data directly into CIIS can use the IZ Quick Add module feature. This includes clinics that enter vaccine inventory through the CIIS Settings module or from the CIIS Inventory module. If your clinic reports electronically to CIIS and you are interested in using the IZ Quick Add feature, please contact the CIIS Help Desk for more information. To use the IZ Quick Add module, you must first log into CIIS. Make sure you confirm your default provider and clinic. If you have access to more than one provider and clinic, you can select the one you want by using the drop-down arrow. Next, click on the plus sign next to the IZ Quick Add module to see all of the associated submodules. Remember, you will need to contact the CIIS Help Desk to gain access to this module. Clicking on the search link will allow you to search for a patient to add to a mass event. From the demographics link, you can update a patient's demographics information. And from the mass event link, you can create a new event, such as a flu clinic, or search for mass events that you have already created. Let's take a closer look at the mass event screen by clicking on the mass event link. Notice from this screen, you can add a new mass event, such as a flu clinic. Once you add your mass event, you can begin adding patients and their vaccination information. We'll discuss this in greater detail later in this demonstration. From the mass events screen, you can also search for a mass event that you have previously entered by clicking Search. When I click on Search, notice the system displays all of the mass events that I have created in the past, starting with the most current event date. You can also see the vaccine used for this event, funding source, number of patients who were vaccinated, event status, the date the event information was processed by CIIS, and if any processing errors were found. By clicking the View button, you can see more details about the event. Whenever you see the question mark icon, you can hover your computer mouse over this icon to see who created and last updated this event. You can also narrow your search by entering information in any of these fields. For example, if I only want to see clinics that I held between October 1 and November 30th, I can enter these dates in the Event Date Range fields and click Search, and the system will only display those clinics that were held during that date range. If you want to see all of the mass events you have created, leave these fields blank and click Search. To set up a new mass event, such as a flu clinic, click on Add New Mass Event. Next, enter the details of your mass event. Please note, all of the bolded fields are required. Enter the event description, and notice the status will default to In Work, which is where you want to be at this point. Any grayed out fields will be automatically populated by the system. Verify your provider and clinic. Next, enter the date you are holding this event. Select Administered By, which is the medical staff person who is administering the doses during this mass event. If there is more than one person administering vaccinations, you can select that individual from the drop-down arrow when the patient vaccination data is entered into the mass event. The comments field is optional. In the Vaccination Details section, you will need to select the vaccine you are administering at your clinic. Please note, you must first enter the vaccine inventory you are going to use for your mass event in CIIS before you can create the event. For my flu clinic, I will select the vaccine I am administering from the drop-down list. Next, select the specific vaccine inventory from the drop-down list. Notice the system displays the inventory that I currently have in CIIS. When I select the vaccine inventory, the system automatically populates the dosage and body route. Please note, these fields can be edited either from this screen or when adding a patient to the mass event. Next, select the default body site. This field can also be edited when adding a patient to the mass event. You will also notice that when I selected my vaccine inventory, the doses available field was automatically populated by the system because my clinic uses the CIIS inventory module to track doses of vaccine. If your clinic uses the CIIS inventory module, the IZ Quick Add module will track the number of doses you have available and subtract the doses you administer at your mass event from your CIIS inventory location. Only clinics using the inventory module will see the doses available field. To save this event, click on Create. Please note, when using the IZ Quick Add module, you can only use one type of vaccine and lot number for each mass event. For example, in my flu clinic, I will administer the Fluzone quadrivalent vaccine. If I have two different lot numbers of this type of vaccine, or I decide to also administer another type of flu vaccine, I will need to create another mass event and select the appropriate vaccine and lot number. Once I create my mass event, I can now begin adding patients who are vaccinated at my flu clinic. To add patients to the mass event, click on Patient List, and you will be navigated to the Mass Event Patients screen. From here, you can view the list of patients who have been added to the mass event. Since I have not added any patients to this event, there are no records found. However, once I add patients to this event, I will be able to view or edit them from this screen. To add patients, click on Add Patient to Mass Event. Next, search for the patient you want to add to the mass event by entering the patient search criteria. Here's a tip for searching for patients. Start with the first two letters of the first and last name. To narrow your search, add the patient's date of birth. If you don't see the patient you are looking for, you can add a new patient by clicking on the New Patient button. CIIS will allow you to enter a new patient with a minimal amount of data entry so that you can add them to the mass event. If you see the patient you want to add, then select the radio button next to their name. And if you need to update the patient's demographics information or VFC eligibility status, you can click on Demographics to edit this information before adding the patient to the mass event. Next, click on Add to Mass Event and you will be navigated to the Mass Event Patient Edit screen. Notice that all of the information that I entered when I set up this mass event is automatically populated to save time on data entry. If any of the default fields need to be edited, just click in the corresponding field. For example, if the person administering the vaccination is different from the default, you can select the correct person from the drop-down list. Since all of the other default information is correct, I will click Create to save this vaccination record. Notice this record has now been saved. Click Cancel, and you will be navigated to the Mass Events patient screen where you can view the patient I just added to the mass event. If you see an exclamation mark in the Override Defaults column, you can hover your computer mouse over the exclamation mark, and the system will tell you which fields have an override. For example, on this record, you can see that the patient has an override for administered by. To view this immunization record, make edits, or delete the patient from this mass event, just click on the View button. Once you've added all of the patients to the mass event, the last step is to submit the event to CIIS for processing. CIIS will process the event overnight, at which time it will add the vaccines to the patient records and subtract or decrement the vaccine inventory for those providers who use the CIIS inventory module to track doses. To submit your mass event for processing, click on the Mass Event link in the left-hand menu bar so that you can search for the event that you want to submit. As mentioned earlier in this demonstration, you can search for your mass event by vaccine type, funding source, status, and/or event date range. For example, you can search for mass events that are still in work, have been submitted for processing, or those that have already been processed by CIIS. To search for all of your mass events, leave the search criteria fields blank and click on Search. Notice the system displays all of my mass events in date order. To submit a mass event for processing, click on the View button next to the corresponding event. From the Status drop-down arrow, select Submitted and click on Update. The system will now process my mass event overnight. Once it is processed, all of the vaccines that were administered during the mass event will be added to the patient immunization records. In addition, the system defaults to documenting the current Vaccine Information Statement addition date on the patient record. And if you are a clinic that uses the CIIS inventory module to track vaccine inventory doses, the system will update the number of doses you have in your CIIS inventory location. Please note, once you submit your mass event, you cannot make edits to the mass event or the patient list. Remember to log into CIIS the next day to make sure your event was processed without any errors. By following the same steps mentioned earlier, you can search for your processed mass event. Here is an example of an event that was processed and contains an error. To correct an error that was found during processing, click on the View button next to the corresponding mass event. Next, click on the Patient List button to view the patients that were added to this event. If you see this icon next to the patient's name, it signifies an error. Hovering your computer mouse over this icon will provide a description of the error. To correct an error, you will need to review the patient's immunization record outside of the mass event screen using the Patient Search feature. Thank you for watching this video demonstration. If you are interested in gaining access to the IZ Quick Add module, please contact the CIIS Help Desk at 888-611-9918.